in the bottom of page Membez, middle of a complicated discussion here. So it started saying that the Zohar says, can you hear me?
I can hear.
The Zohar says about Gal No means it compares it to a river was frozen. Then he says there's a south wind that comes and tows the ice. It's a much. Okay, the Makam, the Mikdash Melech says there's Allah and Amshach. The Allah means Allah means that the Allah means that, like we explained yesterday, that the person doesn't want to stay within his own the Allah's man nukvi, which is a female, feminine waters, which means makabel. The makabel doesn't want to stay in his own place and wants to be nichal nemashpia. So that's called kerach. It's frozen. It's not flowing down. That's how it's explained here, and that's connected with tzofen, because tzofen is gvur, like we said yesterday. Tzofen v'yomin. Tzofen is gvur. Then Amshachas Mad from Chesed, that's the opposite. That's Amshach. It's not the Allah, the Amshach. That's the Maim.
Why is the Allah Kerach?
Because I explained yesterday why it's Kerach. Kerach means that it frees the flow from up. Kerach means like the flow going and you stop it. You stop it. Shouldn't go down. So that's why it's called. That's why it's compared to Kerach, because it's not going down, it stops the flow. You want to go up instead of going down. That's what it says that's Pshat according to Makam. Omnam Beitz Chaim, Pshat Manu Mat Dush Vov, Shaman Upnas Mayim Rokia. Koi kan Pnas Amad Upnas Mayim Rokia, כמו שכוסף שוב זה ממש דוש היי, וזה דווקא סמזיין המדל. So now in its Chaim, it says that both, in other words, according to the Zohar and to the Makam, the man and the ma, the Amshach and the Allah and the Amshach are both connected to water and ice. That's one view. Okay, it says now in its Chaim, it says that there's 3 levels. Oyer, Maim, Rokia. That's a famous expression in Zohar based on the first psukim of Chumash. So it says in Zohar that it says the first thing, then there's the Mayim, and there's the Rakia. So there are three important parts of creation that are described in the beginning of Parsha Bereshis. The Zohar describes them as 3 madrigas, Oyer, Mayim, Rakia. Nachsidus talks a lot about these 3 levels, Oyer, Mayim, Rakia. Sometimes it's like, what is Mayim, Rakia? I think Chachma bin Das, maybe, I don't remember. So there's a few explanations what it means of Chassidus, but now we're going to stick what he says here. So he says that there's this, that man and mad, Mayim Duchim and Mayim Duchim, connected to Mayim Rakia. Was Pshat, so he's going to develop it. The Oyer and Mayim yeshlam shaykh zelazeh. Oyer and Mayim bechlal are connected. Shekosu abachayim. Bachayim pashas miketz. V'ine oimed alay Oyer. Bachayim pashas miketz in the posuk. Pari chelem. V'ine oimed alay Oyer. Says the Bachayim zel l'shein. Ye Oyer v'nor akel echel. That Yehoyer is really means a river. Yehoyer and Noah is one thing. Geen Tirgam Onkelos Nahar. And the Onkelos that translates Yehoyer, river. The river of Nilus, right? Pal Emid Alayah means a Nahar. weiter sagt der Mechaye, ve'ikar shnei miloshen oil. What is the connection of Noah with Ye'oil? Because both means oil. The meaning of both is light. What are you saying Nahaya in Aramaic? It's usually maybe in some Hebrew words also. Nahaya means light, fire. So the meaning of Nahaya is fire. Ye'oil is also light. That's what the Rechai says. Sometimes Shomin, rain, which is for water, so the pasuk calls it oil. Shenema, hein al kapayim kisa oil. Let's find the pasuk. Pasuk in Ishaya. Oh no, that's a different one. Hein al kapayim, what's it saying? Kisa oil. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's like an Eve. I thought so. It's a pasuk in Eve. Hein al kapayim kisa oil. Vaitzav olav b'mavgia. Says Pshat. Says Rashi, what al kapayim is oil, and the ananim otzar geshem. Oil means geshem. Oil in this pasuk means geshem. So we see that sometimes oil means geshem. Uksiv, there's another pasuk. There's another pasuk. Where's that pasuk? Also in here. Yafitz anan. Anyway. That's a pasuk. Also in here. Oh, interesting. You know what? Av Bri. Remember Av Bri from Geshem? Av Bri Samato. So it says Rashi says like Avri. I didn't realize that Avri is a pasuk in here. These words that we say in Geshem. So Rashi says Avri Shem Malach Mamot Al Ananim V'Yofetz Anan Mitoy Shalamok Anan Oyer Anan Mitoy. So we see in both of these psukim that oil is connected to water, to rain. So the the fire says that's why Ye'oil. The Noah is called Ye'oil because Noah and Ye'oil is one. The Meilus, from this we know that Mayim and Oil are connected. That's point number one. Mayim Azal, there is another Mayim Azal that proves it. Let's see, Kol. What is the Chazal? Yeah. No. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yechon, Yalkut Shemaini. Yalkut Shemaini. What does it say? Amar Rabbi Yechon, Kol Oira Shenema Beiliyo Ein Ele Veridas Ksham. That's it. So we see another source in Chazal. First, about the Bechai about two psukim, and there's also Chazal. Yalkut Shemaini. Maybe it's a Gemara also. That Kol Oira Amar Beiliyo Shenema Beiliyo Veridas Ksham Makosef Madab. So we see from all these sources that oil and water are the oil and mayim shachim zeh. So what's the difference? Oil she'ein nefnes metzius klal. The difference oil and mayim is oil doesn't take up any space. Ein nefnes metzius. Mayim is metzius. That, in other words, it's the same according to this understanding. Oil and mayim represent the same thing. The difference between them is that in the state of oil, it's pure, it's abstract. When it reaches mayim, it becomes more tangible. The inyan oil mayim rakia. What is the inyan of oil mayim rakia? Yadua shazel derech mashal. What does the rakia do? The rakia, that in a way that the rakia turns the oil into mayim. I mean, we're talking about conceptual. So he brings a mashal. There's a mashal tipa nimshachas mayach ha'av. So the way Chassidus always describes that Alter Rebbe writes in Tani Perek Beis, that the tipa, that content, that substance that from the person that the person's creating, really its ultimate source is in mayach ha'av, in the brain of the father. No was. The way it's in the mayach, when it says nipshach mayach ha'av, it doesn't mean that there's a physical tipa in the brain. The brain is only controls the nerves, the ruchnis, the spiritual part. That's what it's usually the marshal rakia. Again, that's through the rakia, the oil turns into mayim. Another way to say it is that oil is chachma, and how does it nimshach lower to the das? Zeo beis madregas deir mayim. Beis b'chinas deir mayim. So these are the two levels of deir mayim. Oil b'yisakol b'chachma sh'chinas ruch. Chakash means gas m'chinas mayim. Okay, I'm sorry. So I made a mistake. The rakia is the third level. So the forget what I said about the rakia. The rakia is the third level. Oy mayim rakia. So he says, "Chagash is gash m'chinas mayim. Chagash nikot b'rechem anuku. V'nim tach men tzir evrei avlad zeh m'chinas rakia. Rakia is the third level. But because it says in Hazal, rakia aglido maya. Rakia means the water froze. So what's it in water and ice? The water flows, so it's not so limited in space. It turns into ice, it freezes. It means it becomes solid and stays in one place. So it's a more megushim. So again, the most abstract is the air. The water is already a step down. Chinas ezem mitzius, and the rakia is a glidomaya. That state, the water is frozen, which means in the nimshul, in the marshal of the sahav, that it turns into a child into a vlad, into a fetus.
Why is the das turning it to Metzius Gashmis?
I'm not sure, because again, how das, again, we're not talking about, it's mixing metaphors here. Talking about Chachma Das, that's talking about the tipa, but it's what it says in Tanya Perek Gimel. Das takes what does das mean? It takes the intellectual experience and you connect it to your practical feelings. Das connects Chachma, Seichel, and Midas. It turns the Seichel, the intellectual experience, into Midas, which is more emotional, more tangible. So das is the level that takes the abstract state of Chachma into a lower state of experiencing it in the world of emotions. So that was one mashal of Mayim Rakia from Tipa. But he said there's another mashal. So he's going to bring these three levels of Mayim Rakia also exist in the way we explain an intellectual idea and seichel. The person is inventing a new idea in really, where does that power to recreate, to be creative, to come up with a new idea, to invent new invention, really comes from above the actual seichel. Seichel means analysis. You analyze something, but to come up with a new idea that comes from above seichel. It's above that aspect of seichel which is understood and analyzed. It's similar to what it says in Tanya in Perik Gimel. In the seichel should never has a maskelis. There's the seichel, the source of everything. That's the chach. That level in seichel is called oil. The avir. So now he goes into another point. This is avir and oil. Avir is keser early. Avir is above oil in that, according to this understanding. So avir is pure air, which is a marshal of keser. It's above any expression. Avir keser early. Oil hachma shlim shafnes avir chul. V'ayne prince chachma is timor chachma shebekes. So oil is not stam chachma, it's chachma shebekes. V'atam shenika oil. Why is that level called oil? Kayadua she'oil bli ma uz davar ma. First of all, Chassidus always says that in the physical world, the closest thing that resembles something spiritual, which doesn't take up space, that's oil, that's light. But here he says, he can't touch it, he can't grasp it. So oil represents the most abstract thing. But now he brings in another.
Avir.
Avir is Keser Elyon. That's Keser, which is above Chach.
Why?
Why? Because Avir here is even less than oil. Oil at least has a light. You see the light. Avir something you can't even see. It's above everything. A pure air is the most abstract thing in a way, more abstract than oil. But Avir is something that doesn't even experience. Oil is already is experienced more. You can see it at least. So avir is a much long keser because avir means it's pure air which doesn't have any shape or form or definition relative to the other things. So that's why avir is keser. But then he brings in another point why oil is blima uzdvama. I told you the physical thing, that physical light is a marshal something abstract. But he brings in from Chassidus that in the world of Kabbalah we always know there's Oros and Kalim. Each sphere has two parts. There's the Or and the Kali. Or means the energy within it. The Kali means the shape, the form it takes. So we find in Kabbalah there's a concept in Kabbalah, in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, that Oira Chesed b'Kli Agvur. How is it possible to Oira Chesed b'Kli Agvur? Because that shows that there is Bli Mahus. He doesn't really have the fact that he's Oira Chesed doesn't mean that he's really Chesed. All right, it can be B'Kli Agvur because he's Mufshet. Because the oil itself in this scheme of oil Kalim, oil itself is above any definition, above any midas. No was like al days la pshut b'kli chesed nas oil b'nas chesed. So the oil itself is abstract. That's why it can be oil chesed b'kli agvul. So that's going back to our discussion here.
If oil is poshut, why is it called oil hachesed?
Good, that's a good question. But so it says that is that oil that was that's again, it's like a little gash with the commercial. But the oil was shining. That light was shining to the clear chesed. So it's called oil chesed, and then you can just take the same oil and put it into gvur. But it's called oil chesed because originally it was shining in chesed. This is the simple explanation. But sometimes Chassidus says that even the oil chesed, which is called poshut, it does have some connection to the chesed. But But we'll take it in a simple form. Oil chesed means the type of the oil that was shining in chesed. Now the same oil is shining in Gvura, but it's called oil chesed because it was shining in chesed. But you're raising a good point. Needs better explanation why it's called oil chesed. Aber dem Tatsache, Chenal, there's the Atzim Chochma similar to that. And now the topic we're talking about here. Atzim Chochma, eine Mocker Chochma, the man muss Seichel sein. It's above the essence of Seichel, tangible Seichel. We also list Mimeno, I'm sure in a Seichel become a fine shining. Mainly it can be expressed in various states. In Chochma Zatera, can be expressed in Chochma Zatera, in Gemara, in Chassidus, or La'avda B'tchunu U'Pokaiga. Can be expressed to secular studies, astronomy, medicine. Why? Because the earth is mufshet. It can shine in several ways. There's Yom L'Mayla, so that's a marshal. That's the Nimshal L'Mayla. When we talk about the spheres L'Mayla, that's why L'Mayla, the Madriga, Atzmas HaChochma is called oil. Like we just said, oil means something that's mush. It says in the Siddur that it says in the Zohar, so remember, the Chassidus always brings there's two pshatim in Erev Hayachad. There's the pshat of Arizal and the Alter Rebbe. So Alter Rebbe says Iyu v'chayoy Eres and Iyu v'gamoy is Keli. That's the pshat of the Alter Rebbe in the Yosef Kodesh Iyu v'chayoy. But the Arizal teaches Chayoy is Meichin and Gamoy is Mit. So Iyu brings that pshat of the Arizal. Iyu v'chayoy means Amshachas himself b'chachma ilah. That Chachma ilah is a direct Keli of the Ein Sof, like it says in Tanya. Remember in Tanya, Perek Lamedei, Ba'aga, that Ein Sof is all about the Ein Sof. Zeh Madrigas HaChachma. Chachma is the expression of the Ein Sof. Mimena nimshachi Lamed Beis Nesivas. It says in Sefer Yitzir, the Rebbe Shtei the whole Lamed Beis Nesivas Chachma, 32 paths of Chachma. Because now we're talking about Chachmas Timor, not Stam Chachma. It's a higher level of Chachma. So it says that even the Chachmas Timor also has this Lamed Beis Nesivas. That means the Nesivas is similar to Kamavin Seichel, like we said earlier. This Chachmas HaTorah, Tchum Derefut. Also, Pardes, a part of Shar Nesivas, there's all Shar Nesivas and Pardes that describes the Lamed Beis Nesivas. So he says over there, he describes each of the Lamed Beis Nesivas. He calls them a bunch of names. He chooses 2 out of 32 here. Seichel Mufla, Seichel Mazli. Just two separate Madrigas and Chaseichel. So that is the level of earth. Then there's the next step. The step of Makar Seichel, it's above, it's like oil, it's above Seichel, it's above Kalim, above anything tangible and graspable. That's called oil. Okay, then the next step is the person actually uses the Koyach HaSeichel to let's say invent some idea. When Nikon reveals the Tipas Abba, so that's compared to the Tipas Abba we said earlier. It's not a pshat that's the same seichel, and has the same. It's abstract like the koyach seichel. Kim shenishtanim im usgech seichel shel amayla miseichel amusat umitzav seichel she'ena dakokach. Ad sheichel ibas tzvah sog. From a state of seichel which was above a saga, create a seichel which is a saga. So that's mine. So that's oil and mine. So oil is the marshal in like you started saying, Yuvan Gimel Madrig said Vashpat Sech Baruchnius. So the highest level oil, that is the koyach hasech, the ability the potential, abstract ability to invent ideas and say. But the actual, the expression when it actually when it uses the seichel to invent and to analyze, that's called mind. V'im kol zeh, but even though that's mind, but mayim gakim pshutim agan. Water also does it. Water compared to the rest of the object in our world, water also has this aspect that they're abstract. What way? Number one, ein lam gav. That's the most obvious thing, that the water is colorless, doesn't have a color, so that signifies the certain level of abstraction. Because of part of Sharatzos okay in Perek Dalet, it's the famous part that Sidus always brings the marshal of the Pardes brings the marshal of an Eretz V'Kelim of spheres, brings the marshal being an Eretz V'Kelim that mind Shemishtanim of the Goan Akelim and yes, I'm shooting bets because water is colorless. So you put a cup of water in a red cup. The water looks red. When you put it in a blue cup, it looks blue. Why? Because because water is something that's colorless. And just not only is the water colorless before put it in the red cup, even when it's in the red cup, it's still colorless. Only from the outside, when you look at it through the cup, it looks red. But the water itself is colorless. So the parents brings us the marshal that in the Eretz, the Eretz stay pshut. What do we learn from that? That mine is more tangible than oil, but it's still in the state of abstraction, pshutim. But it doesn't bring the other aspect of the fact that water is pshutim, that water is not, it doesn't stay in one place. It's not limited by space. Then he says, then when it comes low, even lower, in a state of real asaga, it's interesting. You already said, so one second. Okay, so that's the difference. The mime is but it's not asaga yet. There's actual asaga. Oh, then it reaches the lowest level of rakia. That, like I said before, glido maya, that the water froze. Okay, the fact that that rakia is aglido maya is based on the pasuk in Cheskel, I think, that the rakia kein a kerach hanayo. The rakia is like the great terror, the great ice. So aglidomai, the water freeze. So it's like I said, in this type of this marshal, what happens to the water when it freezes? I don't think it gets a color. Maybe it could say it doesn't become color, but it stays in one place. So when he described the water that it's pshutim, and lam gaba, talk about the color. When he talks, the water becomes more magushim, more tangible. So that's a glido. It turns into ice, just frozen in space. Okay, so it doesn't fit exactly. Okay, so we described basically the three madrigas of Oymayim Okia. So let's go back a step. So it's all started with a discussion that bottom of page Membeis, that the Mayim Nuk and the Mayim Dochrim, the Allah and Shach both have Oymayim Okia. So he explained what Oymayim Okia is, that Oymayim are really the same thing. It's just the Mayim is more Magushim than the Oil. The Okia is a third level, which is even more Magushim. Gimel Pines Eila, the Oymayim Okia, Adom Amaris. So Al Capone, again, he didn't say it clearly, but if you read, if you understand what he said, yes, it sounds like Kesser's Am. Oil is Chochm. Chochm is Timor. Maim is Chochm Stam. Rakia is Bin. It's like, that's how he broke it down the Madrigas. Now he says,
I'm sorry. So the my millionim, it's not is like as it says like in the tipper. So the same thing. It's not mesiut. My millionim is coming from here. Yeah.
Well, it's not Mitzis.
It's like the tipper that comes from the moach.
Yeah, but it's already the tipa is a Mitzis tipa, but it's not as abstract as the koyach ruchni, but it's not as magushim as the rakia, as the infant, as the child.
So the same thing is we can apply this to my milyonim, my tachtonim, that my milyonim is in the level of no mesiut.
Okay. So he says now, Gima Prinas El Damakia Em Adrum Oma Miles. In other words, these three levels of Makia really exist in a lot of Madrigas Lamaila in Seder Stashis. The Kamegam Prinas Kesa, within Kesa Gufa, we also have Makia. How does it break into Kesa? Prinas Kesa Shabekesa. וגם בזה, פנס חוכמה שבכסף, פנס מים, רקיע פנס בינה שבכסף. So the way he describes it now is interesting. כסף שבכסף, חוכמה שבכסף, and בינה שבכסף. This is the three madrigas of Chaim HaMarki. וכן, there's another madriga. It says in Gemara, Gimel Shoyes Rishayna, is Shaklish Baruch Yesher B'Tzeisik B'Teira. וכן, Gimel Rishayna is the Atik. It says in Kabbalah, the Gemara says, Gimel Shoyes Rishaynis. Because Baruch Yesher B'Tzeisik B'Teira, the first 3 hours, what are the 3 hours? It says in Kabbalah, 3 hours means Gimel Rishaynis the Atik. Which is also Kesach Chochma Bina the Atik. So he says, in Atik Gufa, we also have the, not Stam in Kesach. Kesach can be Ari, but in Atik also there's the Gimel Rishaynis, which is also Mayim Rakia. L'mayim, he said, there's then even Madriga higher. It says in Kabbalah, in Oyer Tzach, Oyer Metzurtzach, Oyer Kadmon. The Kabbalah says, what does it say? I think it's Zohar. Oyer Tzach, or maybe, I don't remember. I mean, I saw it in Pardes for sure, but it's probably early in Zohar. There's Oyer Tzach, Oyer Metzurtzach, Oyer Kadmon. I think it's Milmal Lamata. So it's 3 madrigas in Oyer. So Gotcha Sham Akal Pines Oyer. So it's 3 madrigas in Oyer Gufa. We call them as Pines Oyer Mayim Rakia. These 3 madrigas can also be described as Oyer Mayim Rakia. And now there was, I think, Tisha Tafshin Yutes, the Emsha for Tisha Tafshin Yutes, the Rebbe spoke a lot of my morim about this concept of Oyer Mayim Rakia. Maybe I'll look it up, maybe get some ideas from it. עד שגם באויר סף לפני הצמצום, even באויר סף לפני הצמצום, ידוע שיש גיל מדרגת באויר, ידוע, this whole thing that לפני הצמצום, יש גיל מדרגת באויר, there is a remez from it in שער יחד ומיתל הרבא, and mostly find it in the memoir of the Rebbe Rashab himself. But let's say I don't think it says in the Keteter such a thing. He says Yadua, but it's limited, I think, to the Shaykh Mital Rebbe and a lot of Mamorim the Rebbe Nishma said himself. He learned it also in the beginning of Samachei, in a lot of places. So what he said, Gil Madregas Oyer, Shalif Netzimtzim. K'nes Etzem Oyer Shalamayla K'nes Giloi, K'nes Giloi K'nes Klolos, K'nes Gimel, Shir Basim Gam Shlas Beis B'Kol, Shkos Malkamach. Which goes Malkamach. The Rebbe Rashab himself explains in other places. So the Oyer itself, Shalif Netzimtzim, breaks down to three levels. There's the Etzem Oyer. Then there's sometimes here he calls it Gila Moshe Bichlolus. Sometimes he calls it Gilui La'atzmai. And then there's shiur ba'atzmai v'koyach, ma she'oseh li is v'poil. There's the three madrigas. Ve'arei gam ken gil madrigas anal. So this three state madrigas and the etzem, the pashtus klolis, and the ashor b'koyach can also be described as maimer kia. Okay, so you just you told us another point, idea of this general breakdown of the three levels for maimer kia is really in every madrigal and milo we can find these three stages. The inne, but it's again more to us here because remember you said in the beginning, like I said, the bottom of page Membezi said that okay, you haven't bought in Maim Nukvin and in Maim Duchin. So all this it's fucked till now. It sounds Maim Duchin means I'm Shochem and Mailavat. I'm Shochem and Mailavat is in three stages, like in the Tipa, the it's all I'm Shochem and Mailavat. But we said before that also in Man, also in the Allah and Mailavat, not on Mailavat. So the Yini Yesh Gamkin Rakia. Now, avoid the milamata, which is the last man, we also have these three stages of Maimer Kia, but now he talks about the Kia, which is the Kerach. Working in a Shteimen B'Shah Chad. That's an expression in, I think it's a pasuk. I think it's a pasuk somewhere in the Nil, maybe. It's a pasuk in the Nil in the Nil. The Nil says, what's pshat? Let's see. It's the whole pasuk in the Nil is Aramaic. It says, "Adein the Nil dishmei b'shatza eshteimim k'shor choda v'ayinei v'alun." The Nil perik dal pasuk tezayin says, what does the Mephoshim say? See. Mephoshim say. Let's say Mitzudas David. Mitzudas David, Mitzudas Tzin. Shteimen means Omad Mushtag B'Timoin Ke'erech Shah Achas Machshavoisev Ivhilois. When Shteimen means he's quiet in the state of wonder. Shah Achas. That's the lashon in the Nil. That's the pasuk. So mainly in our case, it says that Shteimen b'Shah Chad. What's made the Shteimen b'Shah Chad? That he's quiet and he's all in a state of shock, of like shock. Yadua shezel ha'lo as kli sich l'namoka ha'seich. It's the opposite of hamshach. It means when the person stops thinking. What happens? Allah as kli sich l'namoka ha'seich. He stops thinking and he lets he's putting his mind back into Makar Seichel. Let's see if he stops and blocks his intellectual faculties from expanding. Okay, the pasuk in the Nil is just an expression, but what the idea Chassidus always says, when a person is in a state, he learns something, then he reaches a state and he doesn't understand. He's stopped. He stopped. His mind stopped flowing. So what happens? He quiets down, he stops thinking, and he's the clear he stops thinking, and then he becomes a keli to receive the Askala Chadosh. Okay, so this is like describing the process that happens in our mind, it's a little hard to explain, but he uses another explanation which is a little easier. That's much easier to understand. When you sit in a class, in a shiur, and you put your mind aside and you listen to, you accept what the mashpia says, what the teacher says, which means there's a bittul. Basically, the ishtem shachad is the bittul. There's
So
the bittul.
The
What?
word shtume means be quiet, to be quiet.
That's what Rashi says. Oimed mushtak or betimoin, which means it's almost like in Psudas David it says in timoin ushtika. It's like you can look it up. Daniel Perik Dalet Pasuk Tezayah. So it means basically, he says the way he explains it here, the Indian of bittul. So it's easier. It's a little harder to understand the way it works within the human mind, but it's easier to understand if we compare it to a teacher and a student. So the student is in a state of bittul, is quiet. He doesn't let his own seichel express itself. He just puts his mevatel seichel. He listens to what the teacher says.
Imohon is not confusion.
Confusion. I don't know what confusion is the proper.
Or being
Like I said, in shock.
awe.
It's in shock, but
Yeah.
confusion is something I wouldn't like. I don't like the word confusion. Confusion means something vulnerable. No, it's not confused. It means quiet and shock. You're like in shock of something. וזהו, אוקיי, זהו בחינס רקיע כנקרח למטה למעלה. So this concept of bittul, that is the inner of rakia melamata lemaya. Because what does rakia mean? Aglidomaya, right? The water froze. When you freeze, it's similar to the concept of bittul. It means you don't express it, you freeze. It's like freezing. So it's the Indian of Kerach Matan Mailo, that's the bittul. That's the bittul of the Shtoimen. The Kerach Oisi is Chiri. Okay, there's another concept that in Kabbalah, the Chiri, from the Nekudas we have Chirik. What's meant us? Chirik is, let's see what it says here. Okay, one second. Actually, I see. So that's already says Nekudah. What? Second. Mhm. Sorry, one second. They probably both seem like game. But yeah. since Sefer HaBoyer describes the Nekudas, the Nekudas of the Nikud. So Chirik is connected to Kerach. It's the same language. What is Chirik? Chirik is a dat. So that a dat, Nekuda, a dat represents beetle. Is a dat. It's not expressive. That's interesting. He just brings it in there. Chirik, the Kerach Oisi is Chirik, but Shub has beetle Shalamakab. All right. Continue tomorrow. This concept.
Yeah.